Workspace Provision Co., your spot to create, connect, and grow. Flexible offices and event spaces made for entrepreneurs and dreamers. Come see what's possible. To learn more, visit workspaceprovision.com.
A business hub where you can go. It's a Workspace Provision Co. A business hub where you can go. It's a Workspace Provision Co.
This is Grant Paxton here with the Workspace Podcast in the Bonsai Room, 14101 Capitol Boulevard here at Workspace Provision. My very special guest today is Richie Veverka. He currently serves as the executive director of the Greater Franklin County Chamber of Commerce, and you're very involved in local economic development, business advocacy, community building. You're a project leader here.
I try to be. Yes.
Take 30, 60 seconds, brag about yourself a little bit.
Let's see. So I've done a lot in my career. I graduated college a long time ago, and I was a social worker. After social work, I worked for the state government in Massachusetts. I worked for Governor Weldon, Governor Cellucci. There's a thing called the Big Dig Project back then, and so I worked on that. I got into IT, went back to school, got some certifications in IT, worked at Fidelity Investments for a long time as a solution architect, and probably in 2009, I decided to leave Fidelity and bought several Kona Ice franchises.
Okay.
And so I ran those for quite a long time, sold those actually to a friend of mine a couple of years ago. That was kind of a surprise. And after that, looking for something to do. Franklin County's looking for a Chamber of Commerce director, and I applied for the job, and here I am today. So totally, all those things were all unforeseen. Just kind of one thing led to another, and it's like the right person at the right time in the right place, and there you were.
Yeah, I want to sort of shelf the Kona Ice thing because I want to ask you about that franchise. Tell me about your day-to-day work with the Chamber of Commerce. What are some things you're doing?
Yeah, so it just depends on the time of year. So right now we are working on maybe step back a second. So a lot of people think that Chamber of Commerce is an extension of Franklin County government. We're actually a nonprofit.
Right.
So we're a nonprofit agency. Our money comes from memberships. It comes from fundraising. We do 3 big fundraisers a year. The one coming up is Deck the Halls.
Okay.
So it's on November 1st at Long Mill Elementary School from 9 to 3, and it's a vendor fair. And so mostly around holiday crafts, local vendors. A large portion of our vendors are Franklin County or very close to Franklin County vendors. So it gives them a platform to sell their stuff for the holiday season. We did it for the first time at Wake Prep last year. We moved it to Long Mill this year. We had over 100 vendors last year. We have 105 signed up for this year already. I'm probably going to close that down soon. We had about 2,000 people come through the door.
Wow.
So it was crowded. It was bigger than I even expected. I was hoping going into it last year that if I had 50 vendors and we got 1,000 people that showed up, that would be good. It helps having them at schools because the school, advertise for us and get stuff in there. I've been advertising on social media for a while. When I last checked, we had about 85,000 people see the advertising.
Wow.
So I'm going to guess we'll probably have at least 2,000 people again this year. We did an outdoor market. We added on to it. So we have the gymnasium, the cafeteria, a hallway, and then the outside bus loop area will be another place for food trucks and such. So yeah, kind of a one-stop thing. It kind of kicks off the holiday shopping season. It's kind of weird to say that. It's like, it is October. So we did our golf tournament in May. You're thinking, oh, okay, Deck the Halls is next. So, okay, that's way off. And it's like, it's less than a month from
Yeah.
You're like, wow. So it all comes very quickly. But, we need those fundraising events to supplement our memberships. And so we promote and advocate for businesses, not just in Franklin County, but we also have a lot of members in Wake County. And so it can be as simple as legislation or helping get them to the right people to help them with something they're trying to accomplish. It could be job coaching. I've been a job coach for a while when I worked with Kona Ice. I'll talk to people all the time, just giving them advice, things I've learned, sometimes the hard way. I didn't have any pre-training when I owned my business. I've been a photographer my entire life. So since I was 18, I've been selling pictures of things that I take photos of, and local stores in the area have my artwork available for sale. So I've done that for a long time.
Excellent.
Kind of wish that was like something I could like make a lot of money off of, but I mean, I probably sell a few dozen a year, but it's not
Great.
enough it's more of a hobby, I think, than anything else. But I've done it since I was 18.
Yeah.
Just one of those things that had a peddler's permit, and I sat on the street corners in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and I sold my
Love
artwork.
it.
And so,
Love it. Well, it seems that you have an extensive background from having an entrepreneurial mindset to being the owner operator of several businesses. I would say that there isn't a better person to be the director of a chamber.
Yeah.
Why do you think folks think the Chamber of Commerce is government involved?
Well, I think, when you think of a chamber of commerce, like when I was a kid, the chamber is that building in downtown with the big pillars, I mean, and some places are, Wake Forest has a big building downtown. With,
Yeah.
We don't, but you tend to think like, oh, they must get their money from the government. We're called Franklin County Chamber. So I think people think the county part kind of ties us into being part of the county. We are in a sense that we try to be the glue that brings 4 distinct communities together. And that's a challenge in itself. But I don't know if people realize that when you pay your membership, or we host an event and you're not a member, which I leave it open to non-members, but
Okay.
it's the membership and the fundraising that's paying for your opportunity to sit at this event. We're hosting a Lunch and Learn series, 6 series over 6 months here at Workspace on AI, and we're funding that. But it's being funded through the memberships, and it's open to anybody, So, and I encourage all people to come to it. And
What is the date of that AI?
it is on the 14th of October
Okay.
from 8 in the morning until 9:30. And so
Folks sign up through the Chamber's website?
yeah, they go to our website and sign up. They can contact Workspace Provision. They can even call us. But yeah, there's an online link. Each session has its own registration. So it's
Okay.
kind of an incremental. You don't have to go to every single one of them, but like the very first one kind of gives you the introduction to what is AI. Most people think AI is just a robot, that's
Yeah.
in a room or whatever. And honestly, probably 6 months ago, I didn't know much about it. I have a 16-year-old son. He's all into technology. He's into engineering. And I found a tool called Claude AI. And so I was just kind of playing with what it can do. And so I do a monthly newsletter, and I've always been a writer. I wrote the Success Guide training manual for Kona Corporate. And so part of my blog in the newsletter is kind of like just my pulse of what's happening today with the chamber, or just news or whatever. And so sometimes I get like writer's cramp, or you think like, I wrote that, and it kind of has like a little edge to it that maybe I don't want it to be out there.
Right.
And so I just just to try it, I went to Claude AI, I pasted in there, I said, rewrite. And it rewrote it. I'm like, wow,
Wow.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
sound great.
Yeah. Maybe tweak a little bit, and
Yeah.
so, so I'll use that sort of thing. But, talking to Brian Pate with Brian Pate Sessions is going to lead the training. He's also with real estate. Most
Mhm.
people know him through that channel, but he was saying that session 1 is kind of an intro, but it also gets you to train your AI to know your business, know the things that you need. And so I now get that because I've registered with Claude AI. And so it knows when I go in there and say, I'm looking for a topic for my blog, it knows I'm with the chamber.
Mhm.
It knows what I've done before. It can research the stuff that's out there already. Or it might say like, hey, did you know that many chambers are doing Small Business Week?
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So it kind of gives you that sort of thing. And for me, we're a small staff. I'm the only full-time employee. My administrative assistant works 10 hours a week.
Okay.
So we depend on, I have contractors that work with us, but we depend on a lot of different resources, volunteers, our board of directors, to kind of help us manage through it, because obviously I couldn't pull off running a Deck the Halls event with 100 plus vendors and all the people if it was just myself.
Yeah.
So you depend on that. So the idea of having AI do some of this stuff, or, we're doing our year-end summary in a couple of months, and I have all this data, and my background's data, and I put it in Claude AI saying, organize this. It
Yep.
takes all my random thoughts, and it's like spits out, and you're like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, that's a starting point. And so I think for business owners, there's some people that may be afraid of what AI can do, or it's going to take over my job, or it's going to eliminate me or whatever. And, I don't see that as necessarily the case, but I think it's one of those like, man, I wish I had a personal assistant. I wish I could say to somebody, hey, could you draft this for me? Or could you
Yes.
review this for me? Could you check the grammar?
Yes.
Whatever, like all those things that like, it didn't take me out of the writing process, but it freed me up. So I'm not sitting there going through and checking all my punctuation and spelling. And did I get all
Right.
the dots dotted and the T's crossed? And
It elevated what you were doing,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah. I mean, years ago, so I said I was a solution architect, and we did a lot of programming. I mean, years ago, I used to build websites when you had to actually program the button and all that. And, we'd analyze data for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I can see where an AI you'd put that data result in, it would spit out the results. You validate the result and does it in minutes versus weeks and weeks and all that cost. So, I just think it's interesting. A few weeks ago, we were at Novanesis for Leadership Franklin, another thing that we do. And my son, who is in 11th grade, he wants to be an engineering student. And so he had to do an interview with one of the engineers up there, and I ran into her, and she goes, how's your son doing? I said, oh, we're 11th grade, thinking about going to college, whatever. And I said, but he's kind of stuck on what is it that I want to do when I get out? What kind of engineering? She said, her advice would be is think about AI and think about AI's impact in engineering. And that's where you want to be thinking. You don't want to be thinking about today. You want to be thinking about where it's going to be 5, 6 years out or whatever, because it's evolving so quickly. I mean, I remember probably 2 years ago, watching one of those morning shows, and they were showing like an AI robot being able to run, and you're like, oh, that's kind of neat. Now you see them and they're like, they look like almost human, and they can clean your home and, all these other things. And
Right.
it's like, it reminds you of the Jetsons with Rosie.
Well, the Jetsons were the year 2000.
Oh, that's funny.
Did you know that?
Yeah. I thought, as a kid, you think like this guy goes to work and he sits in front of a keyboard and a monitor and he sticks a floppy disk in and he's sitting there just pressing buttons. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of job is that? And here you are today. You're like, everybody sits in front of a keyboard with a monitor and
That's
presses
true.
buttons. So
That's true. The economic development, it's called the Franklin County
Economic Development Commission.
Commission. Okay. I was wondering what the C stood for, but
Yeah.
At any rate, tell me about some of your involvement there. Maybe lean on how this area, of course, is growing significantly from Wake Forest, Wake County to Franklin County. Maybe can you lean on things going on in Franklinton or Youngsville? What kind of growth are you seeing? How are you involved with that?
Yeah. So EDC is actually a county entity.
Okay.
So they are kind of like our partner. They are the county. Most of my interaction with the county is through EDC.
Okay.
And so whether it's here's a new company coming into the county, somebody wants a ribbon cutting, or even projects, the AI thing's kind of a project. There was another project where there's with Vance Granville Community College, where new entrepreneurs can kind of participate in this program, win a grant to help start and incubate their program. Even here at Workspace, that's starting to be more prevalent. But with EDC, they come to our board meetings. I go to their meetings. A lot of people probably think we're very in line or similar, or we're doing the same thing. They're probably more on a higher level, where I'm like on the individual level. So
Okay.
not that they don't go to individual businesses, but
Sure.
I'd say the majority of my membership is probably 10 employees or less. I mean, we do have the Duke Energies and the Wake Electrics and that sort of thing. But, Franklin County is the second fastest growing county in North Carolina, the second to Johnston County.
Wow.
And so a lot of people, you can kind of tell because it's real estate agents and insurance agents that kind of jump on board first, because you start seeing, they see where the opportunity is. Wake County's kind of selling out. They're full.
Yeah.
And you start seeing people coming, oh, I hear about Franklin County and all the opportunities here, and I want to get my roots here, and the chamber's usually a place where someone gets in and says, I want to start meeting people. We do networking things and social things. We do a lot of promotional stuff. Our marketing this year, I just checked because I had to do our year-end summary. We're up almost at 600,000 people have seen our content this year alone. So for a new business, that's something I learned being a business owner, is it's really hard to get your message out there. When you have your brand new website, your brand new Facebook page, and your brand new Instagram, no one's following you.
Yeah.
You can post every day, all day long, and no one knows that you've even posted. Through us, I know if I put a post out there for a business or an activity or an event, I know at least 20,000 people will see it.
Yeah.
And that could be a big boost for somebody.
How do we get my logo on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. When we have a new member, we promote them and post them. We're doing a fun little thing now where we're making these AI generated, really cool, like business signs. I think we
Great.
just did woodchuck tree service, and so they're funny. They're kind of Route 66 looking, but
Yeah,
it's another way of, instead of just advertising woodchuck tree service, you get something fun. It's engaging,
definitely.
and you look at seeing the engagement. That's what we're looking for, is people to see it. And then second thought was like, oh, I have some trees that need to be taken down, or whatever the thing may be. And so we've been doing that for a while. I think last year our promotion was way back Wednesday. When I started with the chamber, we sold the building that we were in Lewisburg, and I found boxes and boxes of old photos. And I had no idea how old they were. And so at first we were just putting them out there as like, who are these people? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And then all these people started commenting, that's so-and-so. And
This was recent?
yeah, that was
Because I caught a couple of those photos.
So for us, it was just like, and it became like a thing. Like, okay, so we started posting them every week. And I mean, and the engagement was through the roof. And it brought a lot of memories for a lot of people. And then there's some people that are like, isn't that the Johnny's Barbecue today? And you're like, well, yeah. Or
Right.
whatever the building is,
Yeah.
that it was. Or I remember that farm, now it's a neighborhood, whatever.
Yeah.
But the growth is like crazy. I mean, I moved here in 2005.
Okay.
And I remember coming to Youngsville, and I mean, it was kind of a ghost town. I mean, there was the main street, but there was nothing here. Hillridge Farms wasn't even like as nearly as big as it was a farm. And you go there now and you see the ag tourism that they have going there. And
Yeah.
wow. I mean, it just kind of it grew.
Yes.
Franklinton, a kind of funny story with that is 3 years ago at our banquet, we do Citizen of the Year, Small Business of the Year, and then the chairman does their own award that we recognize. And so they recognize the developers of downtown Franklinton. And we were doing some research about, at the time I knew very little about Franklinton. I knew what it looked like then. And so I found these pictures. I mean, it was all boarded up. It looked frightening. And I just assumed that was like 1980. And so we were putting together the video, because we pull a video together for the award winners. And that's how we present the award. And I went to the person who was getting the award, and I said, how old are these pictures? He goes, oh, that was like 2019. Like,
Oh,
you are kidding me.
whoa.
Then he sends me a bunch of pictures.
Wow.
I think it was the Owl's Roost. It had no roof. It had a big tree growing through it. And some of those other buildings were just falling apart, and you're like, you wouldn't know that today when you walk through it. You just always assume that the buildings were whole and they were standing there.
Yeah.
The old fire station and police department, now has, a business on the upstairs, and they have the speakeasy underneath. And I mean, you see it when you go through, but there's a lot of new businesses coming there, and you go there on a Thursday night or a Friday night or Saturday, and it's packed. Even more so than some of the more popular areas in Wake County.
Yeah.
You go there, and it's like, I've been to Franco's a few times. It's like, wow. I mean, that's food that you don't just get
No.
at any place. So it's great when you see that happening. Youngsville, they're growing. They're the beneficiary of the proximity to Highway 1 and the proximity to Wake County. So there's that natural overflow. You start seeing things like the pickled onion is coming when they're building it in that area.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, like, where do they continue to grow? I know there's a bypass they're planning to reduce the number of large trucks going through downtown. So there'll be a bypass at some point that takes you around downtown. And they could probably make downtown a little bit more of a downtown where you can cross the street without getting hit by a tractor trailer or whatever.
Well, Youngsville deals with the congestion
It does.
in these pretty much two-way streets, just like Wake Forest does.
Yeah, right. I mean, we get people that call us thinking that we have something to do with the traffic light.
Okay.
Can you fix the traffic light there? Can you get a crosswalk? It's like, well, that's really not us. And actually, it's a highway, so it's Department of Transportation who would actually deal with that.
Right.
It's not even the town. The town gets a lot of flack for some of that stuff that happens. It's like, well, it's really outside of their control either. But I think the ABC store, we did their grand opening not that long ago. And I mean, that's a phenomenal place. And what people don't realize is the amount of revenue that the ABC store brings to Youngsville.
Yes.
And doesn't have anything to do with the number of people who drink in Youngsville or whatever, but
Sure.
the customer service. I mean, I used to do training on customer service. They nail it.
They do.
You know, in my mind, like I think of like the ABC stores when you were a kid and you walked in and like you got the brown paper bag and the kind of the scary guy behind the counter,
Right.
there's a pack of cigarettes and some tobacco.
Yeah, right.
It's nothing like that at all. They got
No.
this beautiful chandelier and
Yeah.
people are there to greet you and to help you. And I think,
It has a like barn/warehouse theme to it.
yeah.
My printing company did all their business cards,
Yeah.
and I was enamored by that building. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful point to Youngsville.
Yeah, it was modeled after, I think, the Jim Beam buildings. They wanted to make it something that was memorable. It's a warehouse. The store that's on Highway 1, they sell a lot, but it does have the warehouse space. So, but I know that when they were putting that together, they wanted to make it like a destination. They do a lot of volume, but they offer a lot of customer service. So there's a lot of neat things that are happening, and people are starting to recognize, if you said 10 years ago, downtown Franklinton, they're like, where is Franklinton?
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to get, even in Bunn, a rustic root, they've been
Yes.
there a little while, but that food is absolutely phenomenal,
Yes, it is.
and you go there and you're like, I mean, you're just not expecting it. And then once you're there, you're like, wow. And so I just went to the Agave Grill in Lewisburg not that long ago. Another one, it was like El Perico. It was probably my top 5 Mexican restaurants. And it's in one of those places that you just don't know. Johnny Bull's, I go there for lunch, Johnny's Barbecue,
That's right.
You go to these places, but you always think about the fancy Fenton and Clint and Cary or downtown Raleigh or
Yeah.
Briar Creek. But man, there's a lot out this way. And I think people are recognizing it
Definitely.
and that movement's coming. So, I mean, you're seeing the growth. I mean, even it's hard with Franklin County. It's 500 square miles. So you got a lot of area to cover.
Right.
You go to some parts of Franklin County, and I mean, it looks like it was Franklin County from 100 years ago. Just there's not a lot of growth, and it's probably intentional. But you come this way towards Youngsville and Franklinton, it's like neighborhoods are going up all over the place, and
Yeah.
there's growing pains with that. Traffic is probably the first growing pain that people see. People who've been there for a long time hate to see that the trees are gone, hate to see that these developments are coming, that the farm used to be there and it's no longer there, and
Sure.
someone sold it. So I think there's those growing pains. I
Sure.
personally live in Wendell, and we have the same issues there. But
Okay.
people are like, I remember when that used to be a farm, now it's Wendell Falls.
Yeah.
And that's just the part of the thing. But you get all the tax revenue and you get all the things, and
Sure.
people want a Wegmans and they want Trader
true.
Joe's and all those things. Like, well, they come with population and they come with economy. And if you don't have those things, they're not interested in moving here.
With the residential development and these businesses and the, let's say, revival of some of these downtown streets and shops and whatnot, we talked a little bit about part of the agriculture part of the county. This episode is powered by Foxtrot Print, located here at Workspace Provision Co. at 14101 Capitol Boulevard, right where Wake Forest meets Youngsville. Foxtrot Print specializes in pieces that keep your business moving. Menus, loyalty cards, booklets, thank you cards, and more. As a husband and wife team, we work directly with you to create print that makes an impact and helps your business stand out. Are there any operating farms in the county?
There are. So as I mentioned briefly about Leadership Franklin. So Leadership Franklin's a program that we do every year. It surprisingly to me is the most popular thing that we do. It's every year. It's from March until November. It's one day a month. And we have themes. So we have Education Day, State Government Day, Local Government, Agriculture Day.
Okay.
So Agriculture Day, you get to see ag tourism, which Hillridge Farms would be, kind of in that boat, the
Yeah.
alpaca farm. They actually have a farm, but they also have alpacas, and you can go and you can pet them. They sell
Okay.
fur, things that are woven with alpaca fur and things like
Okay.
that. We just did a ribbon cutting at the Hunt Family Vineyards. So it's a winery,
Okay.
but they're also going to have an event venue. There's many wedding venues, that are farms.
Yeah.
They use the barns for wedding places. So that's agritourism. That's a big thing that's here. I always thought that agriculture is probably the number one, industry in Franklin County. It's actually manufacturing.
Okay.
So there's a lot of manufacturing companies. I think Palziv is the one that comes to my mind right off the bat.
Right.
They make all kinds of things that we use every day that people would have no idea that we use them.
Hmm.
And so, or K-Flex is,
Yeah.
another one that, they make products that are used every day. We have a company, Fluid, that makes motor or watercraft.
Yeah.
The inflatable hulls, the big, they can be 30 feet, that they use for like the Coast Guard or the police or fire on the boats, on the lakes and whatever.
Yes.
And so, I mean, they make them right here, of course, Novonesis, everybody knows of,
Yep.
that sort of thing. But, those are things that people just don't realize. But there are farms, they're dwindling, but there are many, many farms. We tour them, probably 6 or 7 of them, and you get to
Okay.
see and they're different. Some are, self-sustainable, and some of them are your traditional farms.
Are they anything like beef cattle, poultry, dairy
Yeah.
farms?
Yeah. And there's even, the Mercantile up in Lewisburg. That family, they actually have cattle. They sell their meat right there in their store.
Okay.
That's been there for a really long time. But you get to see, and they do like a little panel, and you get to hear from the farmers, like, here are the pains that we're going through.
Okay.
And one of the things, like, just off the top of my head, is like all this building, all these neighborhoods coming in, and it changes runoff water. Well, the runoff water affects their farming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I would never even give it a second thought. It's like, oh, there's a new neighborhood. But yeah, the water runoff and all that has an effect. And so tomorrow is Farm City. And so it's a lunch that the agriculture department puts on. And the idea is to bring city people and farmers together.
Okay.
And they have a lunch. They recognize, like I remember last year, some 4-H people they recognized. And they talk about agriculture. And so that stuff is still vibrant. People think of the farmer's market as the only thing that's agriculture, but there's a lot out there that, there used to be a tilapia farm. I'm not sure if they're still around anymore. But I know
Okay.
that was around for a little bit. People think of Hillridge Farms as just the amusement park that's there, or the Christmas lights that they do or whatever. But there's a farm, and it started with a farm. And that house that's in the front corner was their home.
Yeah.
And they lived there. But there's the development around it. And so there probably is going to be a day years from now when someone goes by and says, I remember when Hillridge Farms was this little tiny place.
Yeah.
And here it is. It's a destination.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about the Kona Ice
Sure.
business that you had. I've seen those trucks before. I know of people that have operated them. What got you into that?
Well, so, I mean, I worked at Fidelity. I worked it for a long time.
Okay.
I climbed a corporate ladder, and I was working 90 hours a week, like everybody who does. And a friend of mine in Texas had a Kona Ice truck. And I remember seeing a picture of it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. What is that? And I mean, I didn't even know what shaved ice even was, really. And, I'm talking to him on the phone and, got some information. And I reached out to Kona Corporate. This was in 2009. And, at the time, Tony Lamb, who's the franchisor, he had like a podcast. When it was before podcast, it was like a radio interview.
Okay.
And I listened to it and I'm like, there's something kind of to that. And so I made an appointment to go see them. So they're in Cincinnati, Ohio, which
Okay.
most people think like, oh, they're going to be somewhere tropical.
Yeah, right.
They're in Cincinnati.
At least in California.
Well, they're in Florence, Kentucky, right side of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And so I go there and I'm like, wow, they're in this little tiny, like shed-like building. I'm like, this is interesting. And there wasn't a Kona truck to be found at the time. So I went in like February. What I didn't know was they put him in storage somewhere.
Okay.
And so I talked to him and everything. Nice guy. All the people who worked there were super nice people. And I'm like, I think I'm going to buy a truck. So I bought a truck and I decided to take a termination severance from my job.
Okay.
And everybody thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my neighbor across the street saying, you lost it, because I remember driving it home. It was in front of my house. And I'm like, this crazy truck with a penguin on it, and
I love that.
and there was no training. It was the truck was full of all the equipment. And I'm like, where am I
Okay.
going to put all this?
Yeah, right.
I remember making some phone calls and they're like, oh yeah, that mixing barrel, you got to like mix flavoring and you got to get an ice fender. And I'm like, and I never sold anything really before, maybe my artwork, but it wasn't like, that wasn't my natural comfort zone.
Got it.
And so they had the 7 ways flyer, churches, daycare, schools, youth sports, neighborhoods. Those are the places to go.
Right.
And so I remember like getting my truck all stocked up and I'm driving up to a daycare and I'm like, who do I even ask for and what do I do?
Right.
And so I pull up and the lady comes out, can I help you? I said, I'm looking for the directions. That's me. I said, "Oh, I got a shaved ice truck here I'd like you to see." And she goes, "Oh, well, it looks nice, but we're trying to get the kids down for a nap. Could you come back at 2:30, whatever." And I'm like, "Sure." So, I mean, you kind of learn, but
Yeah.
so in that first year, I ended up buying 3 trucks, ended up with 7 pieces of equipment, and I had all of Raleigh for the most part at that, when I had it. And the crazy thing is the amount of money you can make selling shaved ice. And your overhead, the product overhead is low. Your labor cost, your commissary costs,
Yeah.
insurance costs. I mean, I had a $6 million umbrella policy.
Sure.
Because you're driving a truck around kids. Things happen.
That's true.
Accidents happen and whatever. But it was neat because, I mean, you pull into it. I remember my very first event. It was down at the softball pavilion off of Sunnybrook. And they had told me, be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I get there at 3 o'clock and there's nobody there. They gave me the wrong time. It's supposed to start at 6. And I'm sitting there in the sweltering heat in the middle of, summer. And nothing else was open. And the softball players were showing up for this tournament and the families were there. It was brutal hot. And I had a helper with me and we're slinging ice out the window and whatever. And we're stuffing 20s inside this little bin in the truck. And it's 11 o'clock at night. And that was like day 1. It was a 3-day thing. And so the event's over and we're like trying to clean up and I open up the cabinet and all these 20s fall out. I'm like, oh. And the helper's like, "That's the most 20s I've ever seen in my life." I said, "I think it's the most 20s I've ever seen," and you realize quickly, it's like, oh, if you do this right. So not having that training is what prompted me to start writing the success guide. And so I would sit there in the off season and just start like, here's the things I learned. The gatekeeper at the church can be really mean. So
Yeah.
you want to find a youth pastor.
Okay.
They're the ones that are like more friendly.
The little tips and tricks.
Yeah, and
The
so
insider secret.
yeah, and so you start documenting this, and before you know it, it became this 9-chapter thick binder. And we needed a way to deliver it. So at the time, you would just get that binder with your truck. Well, you're assuming someone's going to read 9 chapters. So we did this Kona College, and new owners would come to Florence, Kentucky for 3 or 4 days, and we would teach them everything from stocking your truck and making flavoring to marketing to pitching to everything you would need to know so that when you went home, your success rate was higher. And then with that became the coaching part. So you'd be assigned with a family who bought a truck and you'd kind of see them through the progression of their thing. So I try to bring that knowledge to my job today.
Okay.
So when a new business opens or somebody's thinking of a business, you say, here are things that I ran into when I opened the business, or here are things to think about going into it. And year 1, I didn't know. I mean, we got to December, January, there was no income. Like, there's no money. And you realize like, oh, I have to tap into savings just to buy groceries because it's too cold out. At least I thought it was. What you learned over time was people will buy shaved ice all year long. But you just got to be willing to go out and do it. We at one point had 35 staff.
Wow.
So we were cranking through. I mean, I was making hundreds and hundreds of gallons of flavoring every weekend. July 4th, I mean, you just couldn't keep up. We used to get ice from a supplier. They couldn't keep up. So we had to get our own ice makers, and that was a whole ordeal of getting that all certified and everything.
It seems like it all took off.
It did. So we would would depend on retirees and teachers, and the teachers couldn't work because they had to stay through the summer, during COVID because they had to teach. So it was like, oh, okay. And the school bus drivers, they couldn't either because they were driving school buses.
Right.
The college students, many of their families didn't want them out during, the pandemic, so
Okay.
like, okay. So I've got 7 pieces of equipment sitting here. And so the crazy part is after COVID, I was thinking about getting into something else. That's how I started with the chamber. And I was having lunch with a friend of mine who owned a franchise up in Oxford. And he said, I'd really love to buy your Wake Forest franchise. I said, well, that was my first one. I don't know if I could ever sell that one. If I was going to keep one, that'd be the one. And I said, jokingly, I'd sell them all if I was going to sell any of them. He's like, well, great. How much are they all? And I'm like, oh, maybe, I don't know. I didn't think he was serious. I just threw a number out at him. We finished lunch, and a couple of days later, he calls me up and says, I'm willing to do it. I got an attorney and I got a check. I'm willing to do it. I'm like,
Wow.
And that was like right before the season. Like I was getting our bookings starting and getting
You were
staff.
lining up work?
We were getting ready to line up work, and it was like, I guess I'm no longer out of in the Kona business. So
What do you hand over the keys to all your equipment?
Yeah, he came and got all the stuff,
Wow.
all the commissary stuff, and some of the staff even went with him. It's kind of weird today when you see the Kona trucks driving around. Oh yeah, I used to own that truck.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a learn. I mean, I learned so much through doing it. I had the benefit of working with Tony Lamb and his father Tom. They're marketing geniuses. And every time I would go to Kona Corporate, I would learn a little nugget of information, and it's like, that's the stuff I use today. When I do our marketing for the chamber, I kind of keep those things in mind. They were very big about, don't be political, don't be religious, keep your opinion to yourself. You can put it out there, but if you do, and I see business owners do this a lot, go on a limb putting their opinion out there, and it's like, you don't know who you're offending. Whether they should be or not, but you don't know who you're offending, and you're eliminating half of your potential customer base just because you feel strong that, whatever, you don't like that sports team, and you're out there, well, everybody who, is a Ravens fan isn't going to be happy with you, whatever it is, and so, but, that stuff sort of happens, but you learn those lessons. And so I always try to bring that to what I do today. And when I meet with people, obviously not an expert, but and even with talking with people, you're always willing to learn, and you learn new things. The guy who helps me do our social media stuff, or he helps me with our video, he's like, man, you should get on podcast. This is 3 years ago. You should get on podcast. You should do some Facebook Live stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't. And then last week I said we had done one, and it's like, I can see the value. Getting the message out there for people who listen. And I'm like, I'm not that generation who would turn a podcast on, but I have friends who aren't, like, oh, I listen to podcasts every day going to work. I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's one way to get news or information or whatever. And that's the thing that's changing too, is with the chamber, is business owners are younger. And, me, being an older generation and owning business, we benefited from going to the networking meetings and going to the lunch and learns and I remember speed networking was a thing. Now, younger business owners are like, I can network on my phone. I can listen to a podcast. I can YouTube a video on how to do a certain thing. And you're like, well, yeah, you can. I'm still in the school of nothing beats a handshake.
Yeah.
You got that connection. Yeah, you can work with people online, but it's when you meet them in person, you get a personality, you get something behind it, a handshake, somebody a little better. And I think that's what bridging that gap. And so I'm always trying to look for that. AI series is kind of that bridging the gap between the older folks who are afraid of AI and the younger people who probably do this in their sleep. But it's to bridge that gap and bring those kind of things together, because we've done a lot of different types of lunch and learns, but we've never done AI. And so I'm always looking for, okay, what's something that would be really beneficial? And then I met with Brian. He's like, oh, I got a 6-part series. I'm like, there it is, a piece of cake. We're going to try that one first. He's like, I got these other 12. I'm like, let's do these ones, and then we'll go ahead and do it. So really encourage people to get out there and sign up for it. It's an hour and a half of your time once a month. And if you get a little nugget of information that helps you along. I remember when I joined, I was a member of the Wake Forest Chamber when I owned Kona. And I remember going to my first meeting saying, these are attorneys, they're tax people, they're real estate. I mean, I don't need to network with these people. You don't realize they're fathers, they go to churches, they are coaches.
That's right.
They have other roles. And so you just don't know on face value, the person you're talking to, what connections. And I love when I can meet with a chamber member. There's a gentleman who owns a trucking company. And he goes, I'm going to be honest. He goes, I'm joining this chamber so I can get some leads into getting some trucking leads.
Right.
And it was always in the back of my mind. And I was at a company, and we were talking about, we were at leadership, and they're like, we really need some trucking companies. I'm like, I think I have the person. I make the connection. And 3 days later, he calls me up. He goes, the chamber works. And I said, I want to get a quote from you. He goes,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. He goes, we're hauling stuff all over the place. I'm like, that's great. You just don't know. Here I am, almost 60 years old, and it kind of worked out, but now I look back, you look at your resume and you're like, wow, I've really done a lot of different things, but
Sure.
they all kind of tie together when it's all said and done. So
That's correct. Well, that's a fantastic message. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. You have the Deck the Halls event coming up. You have the AI event going on here mid-October here at Workspace Provision Co. You're serving as the executive director of the chamber. You can get involved with the chamber on the website. You can register as a member. You can sign up. The chamber is certainly a valuable way to see the new businesses opening up, to network, to get involved with folks. I really appreciate your time, Richie. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You got it. All right, that's a wrap.
A business hub where you can go. It's a Workspace Provision Co. A business hub where you can go. It's a Workspace Provision Co.
Workspace Podcast is recorded at Workspace Provision Co. in Youngsville, North Carolina. If you would like to get involved or sponsor our next episode, email us workspacepodcastnc@gmail.com.